too gleeful.
Isn't that precious? Hey, who would have thought that little one was going to come right towards us like that? So these little ones are going to have to be very, very careful. Mom's going to have to be very, very careful. They don't really know how to be careful just yet. They just know how to be cubs.
Lion cubs are like little clouds of fluffy fun, infused with vicious teeth, needle claws, and zero respect. Well, what a wonderful wild week that was. Until next time, I leave you with the following quote from Max Maurice. And no, I had never heard of him either. Remember, the color of a woman's stockings is not necessarily in the likeness of her eyes, and so it is that the cephalopod has more reasons to hate progress than the quadruped. Good night.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Live at the Waterhole on this wonderful Saturday morning. So we're starting off at Mantis Founders Lodge. We've got a couple of white rhinos. Looks like they're just having a lazy Saturday morning. So my name is Johan Herbst. I'll be your presenter for today. Just a quick reminder that this is a live and interactive experience. We love to hear from you, so send us your comments or questions through on our app or website. The details are displayed on the screen below. So today's theme, I want to cover some unusual animal behaviors. So tell me about the most bizarre behavior you've seen, and whether it be on the show or while out on game drive. I'm curious to hear your stories. So please share your questions, your stories, your comments, so we can start the discussion. So one of the most bizarre things that I've ever seen in terms of animal behavior was a video posted by Latest Sightings. So there was a brown snake eagle that had attempted to catch a black mamba, and the mamba then took over and got hold of the eagle, and the eagle seemed to be dead, and the mamba was stuck in the talons of the eagle. So then lions came around and tried to snatch the eagle from the mamba. It was like watching a movie with a crazy plot twist at the end. So the snake eagle eventually stopped playing dead and escaped the clutches of the mamba and flew away. And it seemed to be unscathed, so it was really bizarre to see. But that must be one of the most unusual sightings that, well, I didn't see it in person, but I saw the video and I thought it was really cool. So you can see this little baby rhino, so cute. Looks like keeping his ears open for any potential danger. I find it quite fascinating how they use those big ears of theirs like satellite dishes, and they move independently of one another, unlike other animals like lions and elephants, for example. Their ears can move independently, so that's quite interesting to see. So they've got almost like a 360 degree, almost like a 360 degree sort of hearing signal. So let's see what's happening at Safari Hook. Maybe we've got something interesting there. These rhino seem a bit lazy and unperturbed. Speak of the devil. We have some lions there to the right of our screens. Oh, there's another one to the left as well, very well camouflaged. They're using what little shade is available to escape the midday heat. How exciting to have lions on the show. I've only ever had lions once before, so it's always very exciting, especially on this program. Because generally you see them more in the mornings and in the evenings when they're more active, but it's always a treat to see them, even if they are doing nothing. So Mercedes Bean says, greetings Wild Earth crew and chatters, happy Saturday. Thank you very much, Mercedes Bean, and a very happy Saturday to you too. Very excited to be with you today, and I'm sure we're going to have a very good show. It started off with a bang with these two lions, or otherwise referred to as Ngala, which is the Tsonga name for them. And then, of course, another name for them is Tau, which is the Sotho name for a lion. And also the name of one of the game lodges, one of the game lodges that we see on the show. So Melanistic Marble says, hi everyone, and hello Johan. Thank you very much, our devoted viewer, Melanistic Marble. Always nice to hear from you. So I've got a question from Njomanes Imon 639. They say, or they're asking, why do rhinos lower their head like that? Are their heads heavy? So the white rhinos, they have their heads which are always lower to the ground because of their feeding habits. They are grazers, so they tend to eat more grass than anything else. And so their heads normally droop to the ground like that because they need to be able to access the grass closer to the ground. So which is unlike the black rhino, which has its head more propped up, and that's because of the black rhino's feeding behavior of feeding on trees. So they eat leaves and flowers and fruits from trees. So it looks like we're trying to see some more Ngala, some more lions, seeing if there's maybe some more hidden. Oh, okay, I see we've got a giraffe. couple of giraffes there. So there's some excitement over here at Safari Hook in Namibia. And still see it, you can see it looks quite dry over there. You can see some weeds growing around the waterhole here. And that isn't uncommon to find around waterholes, because weeds tend to grow in disturbed areas, or areas where there's been a lot of trampling or movement, or a lot of... Oh, see, there's another lion hidden right under the tree there. So well camouflaged, and that giraffe, those two giraffes don't seem to notice, or maybe they do and they're just very cautious. We've got a dead leadwood over there in the water. Very useful tree. I'll discuss more about that in a little bit. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see what our camera is detecting. There's a nice shot of our, looks like female lion or lioness. And I don't know if you noticed, but just as we caught a close glimpse of this lion, you saw the black at the back of the ears. And that's because it's actually, they've evolved to have these black markings behind their ears. And it's used as much like an impala's black stripes on its rump, or like a waterbuck's ring on its back. They're used as what we refer to as follow me signs. So basically, when they're hunting and they're stalking their prey in the long grass, the lions will communicate with one another with the black at the back of their ears. So they sometimes move their ears to communicate with one another. So it's one of the interesting ways that they hunt without using any vocalizations.
Wildlife spectacle on planet Earth. We'll see you there. Can you hear that? The wild is calling.
And of course, the giraffe to our left. So Mercedes Bean says, Cataday is official. So Cataday, it definitely seems to be. So this cat looks very relaxed, quite a flat cat. Seems quite unperturbed, just wants to conserve its energy. You can see it's breathing quite heavily, trying to dissipate all the heat in its body. So Monique Cherry says, it's the same place that Amy had the lionesses the other day. So I was unsavvy to that, but thank you for sharing that, Monique. Yeah, it's such a privilege to have them have the sightings so close to one another. So that's very cool. You can see it's just this lioness is sitting amongst these weeds. See, it looks like a cocklebur. It would seem these are invasive alien plants that tend to be quite an encroaching species. So they grow wildly in areas that have been disturbed, like I was discussing earlier, like around waterholes where you have lots of animal activity. So there's lots of big animals like buffalo and elephants and rhino perhaps that are trampling the soil. So compacting the soil, making it difficult for other plants to establish their roots. So then it becomes an ideal environment for weeds like this cocklebur. And so those seed pods, those spiky seed pods that you see, they act like a casing, like a sort of canoe that floats down a river, and then it will wash up along a shoreline, and then they tend to just establish themselves very quickly in an area, especially an area that doesn't have much established vegetation already. So perhaps you can see these two giraffes you can see they're definitely aware of something. Maybe they haven't spotted the lions yet, but maybe they can smell them. The giraffe do have very good vision, excellent vision, and that's why you sometimes see zebra or impala, other animals tend to hang around giraffe because they've got an excellent vantage point. They can see great distances with their long necks, and so they're able to alert other animals when they see a predator. So they're much like watchtowers of the bush. So Quinda from Messina says the rhino and giraffe are totally clueless, but the lion's like, nah, I'm good. So yeah, it looks like maybe the lion has perhaps had something had a hearty meal, perhaps earlier or the previous day. So yeah, maybe it's that the lion has had a big meal earlier, or maybe the lion knows not to mess with the giraffe, because the giraffe, they do give a very deadly kick, which is able to break the ribs and perhaps pierce the lungs or the heart of a lion with a broken rib. So they can actually inflict a fatal blow to a lion. And of course they can swing their necks, which can also generate incredible force. So me is asking, but the lion can't take down a giraffe alone, right? So definitely the pride would have to hunt. So the lions would have to hunt the giraffe together. So it's not likely that a lion would be able to take down the giraffe on its own. Of course, the giraffe has a very long neck and also quite a tough hide, quite a tough skin. So the lions would have to be quite precise when they do try and get to the jugular vein or jugular artery, and so they'd have to be precise, because if they aren't, then they could get seriously injured and it could potentially kill them. I see we also have some springboks over here, and this some very brave springboks. Perhaps they haven't detected this lioness yet, or these lions, because of the wind direction. Perhaps the wind is blowing from the springbok towards the lions, and these lions are not bothered in the slightest. And as I mentioned, they're also looking to conserve their energy. Oh, so it's a really interesting bunch of animals that we have here today. We've got the gemsbok, or the oryx, there to the right. We've got some lions, we've got some springbok, we've got some giraffe. Wow, okay, whoa, some interesting. Oh, wow. It just keeps on getting more and more exciting. Just unsuspecting sighting one after the other. And it's not often that we have two of the big five in one sighting. So very, very, very cool to see. So this elephant has just said, "Excuse me, lions, I believe this is my waterhole, and you must go now, because I do not like you, and I do not like the way you smell." So he's chasing, or those elephants are chasing away these smelly cats, because they can be very smelly with their diets, and when the lions poop, their poop can be incredibly smelly and pungent. So you can definitely smell when lions are around, because you can imagine if you eat so much meat, you just eat meat, you can imagine what the feces smells like. So lots of action-packed Saturday. I see this elephant over here is now, looks like there's a little pond next to the waterhole. Perhaps that's where water is being sort of pumped into the dam, perhaps. So as I've mentioned in previous shows, the elephants, they do love fresh water, and they can become quite a nuisance around lodges and that, because they like to pull out pipes. So they're very good at digging the pipes out of the ground and pulling them and breaking them apart to get to nice fresh borehole water, or water coming from an aquifer or underground water. So Wildlife Lady says, we are very lucky to see a lion on live at the waterhole. Very special. Very, very lucky to see this today. I've been very lucky on my shows to get some of the most incredible sightings. I just hope my luck doesn't dry out too quickly. So you can see this lion is just, this lioness is just so keen to have a nap, but the elephants and all these other animals they want to have a pool party. So unfortunately for these lions, they can't get their rest.
Real, you say the best kind of roadblock? Absolutely. Look at this.
Hello, girls. Out here, every wild moment counts, and as a Wild Earth explorer, you will not miss out. Watch the Wild Earth channel ad-free 24/7, and you can even rewind if you have missed out on something. Enjoy the behind-the-scenes video clips as well as fireside chat, or get the early offers on our travel experiences. It's the best way to stay connected and be part of the Wild Earth family.
So definitely the areas around the waterholes are where the more affluent animals live. Okay, so Looks like we've had some exciting moments over here at Safari Hook. Well, let's see what's happening at Old Donyo. We haven't seen what's happening there yet today. And Old Donyo never ceases to disappoint. Seems like there's just an endless party going on at the waterhole there at Old Donyo. Almost as if these elephants that hang around here are like statues. They just love to hang out over here, and sometimes they don't move around too much. And we have plenty of fringe-eared oryx over here. And some zebra, of course, in the middle of our picture. You can see the elephant is now looking a bit cautious. You can see the body language is changing. This elephant was like, I can tolerate only so many people around my waterhole at once, and I also don't like you getting into my personal space. So I don't know if you also have a personal space bubble, but I definitely do. If I'm not too familiar with someone, I don't like them getting into my personal space bubble. So much like a lot of animals, elephants, they don't like other animals to get into their personal space. And so they use their body language to communicate their unhappiness. But now it seems that this elephant has accepted the zebra and oryx for now. So please do share your most bizarre sightings. I'd love to discuss it a little bit more. What is a crazy sighting that you've seen on the show? It could also be on the afternoon or morning game drives on Wild Earth. Or it could have been something from your own personal experience or a video you've seen perhaps. But please do share it. So K9 Girl says, hey everyone, happy Saturday. Great start, favorite lions and favorite antelope oryx in one place. Definitely a very exciting start at Safari Hook. I almost couldn't believe my eyes when I saw the lions. One of our first sightings of the day. So Malika Strand is asking, the Malika Strand is saying, the other day on Safari Live, I was surprised to learn that female lions roar. I never knew. So yes, they do roar. It's not only the male lions that roar, although the male lions roar a lot more because they are trying to communicate to other lions that they are present and that they are guarding their territory. And so the male lion's roars can be heard on a cool evening up to 8 kilometers away. So they can travel great distances, and because their territories are very large, so it's important that their roars are heard at great distances, so that those lions or other predators, other competition, don't even dare think of stepping into their territory. But yes, the female lions, they do communicate. Often they roar to establish where each other is. So if they're perhaps far away from each other, maybe a female or a lioness will roar to let her cubs know that she's close by, or if maybe the cubs get a bit lost, then the lioness will also roar. Or perhaps the lioness will roar when she's made a kill, and letting the other members of the pride know that they must hurry quick and help themselves to a delicious homemade meal. We have the chickens of the bush there in the background, some helmeted guinea fowl. Very, very noisy bunch of chickens, bush chickens they are. So let's see what's happening at Founders Lodge. Founders Mantis Lodge. Okay, we have a little oh, that's too nice, just to have a nice little dust bath. So this little baby zebra, this young zebra over here, is having a little bit of a dust bath, having a very relaxed Saturday morning. So often you'll see zebras, much like horses, they tend to roll around in the sand or in the dust or the dirt, and they do this to kind of like suffocate the parasites which tend to stick to their bodies, the irritating blood-sucking parasites. It looks like, what's that in the background there? We have a little warthog, little antennas of the bush. So Silly Gilly says, we have watched as a fish, eagle and croc chased and stole a kill from each other repeatedly over a 30-minute period. The kill was too big for the bird to lift. The croc was 20 minutes away from the water. So that sounds like quite an action-packed sighting as well. So was that on the show? That sounds like quite a heart-racing sighting. So thank you for sharing that, Silly Gilly. So Picasso says, hi, the strangest thing I've seen on this TV program is a scrub hare nursing 2 kids. So that is very cool to see. I wonder what time you saw that, because typically the scrub hares are active during the nighttime, so they're nocturnal. So that must have been quite an interesting thing to see, because it's not very common to see, especially at this time of day. We have a blesbok in picture over there. Incredibly fast antelope, one of the fastest that we find here in southern Africa. You can see these zebra are using this rock as a bit of a scratching post. As I mentioned, those irritating blood-sucking parasites that get under their hair, or in between their hair, they can cause a bit of like a skin irritation, and so the zebra will use a tree or a rock like this to try and scratch that itch. So let's see what's happening at Tembe Elephant Park in northern KwaZulu-Natal. Looks like we have 5 elephant in picture. There's also something in the background there. So can someone comment what that animal is in the background? Is it perhaps a nyala? Let me know what you think. Isn't it just, it's always great to see the elephants. Aren't they just the most incredible creatures? And so the African elephant, or shall I say the savanna elephant, the scientific name or the Latin name is Loxodonta. Oh, okay, there we've got the nyala in the background. So that's a male nyala. And so the males and the females are quite different in their features, and so we call this sexual dimorphism. So having 2 different sort of body shapes, the di meaning 2 and morph being sort of the shape. And so the male nyala tend to have a more shaggy coat, and the female has a reddish brown coat, almost like an impala. And the male also has horns where the female doesn't. And then you can also see the nyala has this has these sort of reddish brown legs sort of below their knees. You can see it's almost as if they're wearing sort of socks or something, like maybe football or rugby socks. So Lenny says that her crazy, unusual sighting was the wild dogs that caught a pregnant impala during Live at the Waterhole. So I have heard about that, although I didn't see it. I should actually go back and have a look at it. Maybe if someone can comment when exactly, which day that happened. So I'd love to see how that went down, how that played out. See their very shaggy coat and their bushy tails. And then, of course, they've got that white chevron on their face, that white marking. And that's perhaps to keep the glare out of their eyes during the day. And you can see it's got sort of white, sort of faint white stripes, which go down vertically on their flanks, on their sides. And so it's believed that this is a sort of form of camouflage where it breaks out the outline of the nyala, so that when they're standing in some thicket and some dense bush, then it's not as easy for predators to see them. Looks like we've got a woolly-necked stork just below the elephant in picture. Also just having deep thoughts, maybe a very intense internal dialogue. So Monique Cherry says the sighting with the croc and impala at Chitwa with James was her most unusual sighting. So I'd love to hear more about that sighting. What happened exactly? Melanistic Marble says the secretary bird and the locust the other day was very funny. So I can imagine perhaps the secretary bird was playing with the locust. Please tell me more about it. So Yerika is asking, is the male nyala called a bull or a ram? So it's referred to as a bull, a nyala bull. And the female then is referred to as a calf. Sorry, my bad. I noticed I said calf. I meant cow, a nyala cow. As I was mentioning earlier, before I cut myself off, I was mentioning that the elephant scientific name is Loxodonta africana. So that's the savanna elephant. So in Africa we get the savanna elephant and the forest elephant. And so Loxo means slanting, and then Donta means tooth. So quite appropriately named because of their tusks, which are actually teeth. So they're much like our canine teeth, but they protrude out of their mouths or out of their faces and have many different uses, amongst them being defense and digging and in their feeding behavior. But so just a little interesting fact for you there, that the name comes from their tusks. Loxo slanting and Donta tooth or teeth. And then of course Africana or Africana being where they occur in Africa.
This is an unbelievable afternoon.
Even a hyena coming into the action as well now. Oh my word! She's stalking the hyena now. Leopard, hyena, lion, all together in one shot. Oh. Woo. This is action-packed.
Best sighting I've presented. I found myself with wild dogs. We chased the dogs around, chased them around. They ate an impala. We got the end of that. Then another impala went into Gowrie Dam down the road there, and the wild dogs went around. Eventually the impala came close to the bank. One wild dog went and grabbed it and then just pulled it out and just did what wild dogs do. It was an emotional experience, but it was very, very special.
The bush, full of beauty, wonder, and absolute chaos. And now, all that madness has its own show. It's called a Wild Bush Week. The countdown of the most outrageous, heart-stopping, and sometimes downright ridiculous wildlife moments of the week. Lions throwing their weight around. Hyenas gate-crashing the buffet. Leopards doing, well, leopardy things. Each week, it's a fresh reel of safari gold. A mix of drama,
She's just got an impala, everybody.
danger, and a healthy dose of laughter. So, if you fancy a highlight show with bite, and I don't mean just the animals, tune in to a Wild Bush Week. You bring the tea, and we'll bring the tusks, tails, and teeth.
Of a fork-tailed drongo in picture, but now it seems to have flown away. Incredibly clever birds, those drongos. They're able to mimic the alarm calls of other birds, and they do this so that they can cause a false alarm, so that animals start running away at this alarm, and as they run away, they flush a lot of insects and that out of the grass, and so the drongos would swoop down and grab some of those insects that are trying to escape being trampled by an impala or whatever it is that ends up getting spooked by the alarm call. Or perhaps there'd be a bird which is busy eating its catch or its prey, and then it leaves it because it thinks that there's danger present, and then it ends up being a false alarm. So they're quite cheeky. Some might argue they're very intelligent, very good at conserving their energies so that they don't have to hunt themselves. Okay, let's see what's happening at Safari Hook. Let's see if those lions or Ngala are up to something. We have a little bit of a wrestling contest going on over here. Perhaps a playful contest between two young males. So I imagine it's quite hot there in Safari Hook at the moment.
This unfolds in front of you.
At Wild Earth, we believe every story has the power to create change. That's why we've launched the Wild Earth Impact Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to conservation and social impact. By showcasing conservation stories, we can change lives, protect nature, and empower communities. We have partnered with Empowers Africa to accept tax-deductible donations from US donors. Your donation will help fund critical programs that support our mission. Join us and be part of the change.
Some ellies that we're approaching now.
The light on her as well is absolutely gorgeous.
So we are going to enjoy the rest of this sunset.
Wow, this is absolutely crazy.
And thank you for joining us. For myself and Cam, we will see you next time.
We are here with a male leopard.
So as I was mentioning earlier, we have the savanna elephant and the forest elephant. And so the forest elephant, they're typically found more in Africa's indigenous forest. So you can find them in the Congo, in the tropical forests over there. And South Africa also has some indigenous forests, but unfortunately many of the elephants are now extinct in those indigenous forest regions. And back in the day, there used to be some elephant in the Knysna forest, Knysna being a coastal town in South Africa in the Western Cape, either Western or Eastern Cape. But regardless, there were many forest elephants that occurred there once upon a time, but unfortunately due to hunting and poaching for ivory and habitat destruction and conflict with humans, there's only one, it's believed that there's only one forest elephant left there in the Knysna forest, and that elephant is affectionately known as Oopwoord. So Oopwoord is an Afrikaans term for old foot. So unfortunately that's the last of the Knysna elephants left. So of course the forests get cleared for timber, and so the wood is used as a building material or as firewood. And so unfortunately much of South Africa's yellowwood, which is a tree that can grow very, very large and which can grow very big. Unfortunately, a lot of that yellowwood has been cut down and used in furniture, and so now it's a protected tree because unfortunately people have exploited it to near extinction. And so there's an endemic bird species called the Cape parrot, which is very dependent on the yellowwood trees because it feeds and nests in these trees. So unfortunately the Cape parrot is also incredibly endangered now because of the exploitation of the yellowwood trees. So Rolf in Kariba is asking, how do elephants pick up mud to spray on their bodies? So sometimes they can scoop it with their trunks. They use their trunks as kind of like a shovel, where they make their trunks in the shape of a sort of shovel, and then they lift it up or they scoop it up. And sometimes they can suck some of the mud in their trunks or through their trunks, and then they throw that over their bodies. So that's some of the ways that the elephants get the mud over their bodies. And then of course sometimes elephants do like to wallow in the mud. The smaller elephants are able to roll around in the mud. And you can see these elephants, they don't look incredibly relaxed. They don't look the most relaxed, because you can see sometimes they're sort of just keeping still as they're listening out, and perhaps they feel a bit unsettled by the presence of those lions around the waterhole. And so often you will find that predators like lions and leopard will use the waterhole to their advantage, because of course they know that their prey eventually has to come and drink, and so they're normally hanging out around the waterhole waiting in ambush. And Sorry about that. So they hang around the waterhole, and so during the daytime they're typically in the shadier bits, and so it's not typical to see them during the day because they're hiding in the shade, and that would be why we don't see them very often on the show. So Lady Macbeth says a lone cow in Knysna, the lone female elephant, forest elephant in Knysna is left. So it's a very sad reality, but unfortunately humans compete with these majestic creatures for space, for housing, and for other resources like water and land for agriculture. So it's just one of those things that we need to be very careful of, that we have a healthy balance of sustainable development where we can develop our economies while also looking after our wildlife and not at the expense of the wildlife. So there definitely are ways in which we can boost and grow our economies while still protecting our magnificent natural heritage. And of course, ecotourism rings to mind when we think about that. Because of course, ecotourism brings in a lot of revenue, a lot of income, foreign income into many of these developing countries and these regions in Africa. Okay, let's leave these Ellies alone for a little bit and see what's happening at Tembe Elephant Park. Perhaps some interesting activity over there. No, it looks quite windy over there in northern KwaZulu-Natal. It's quite cloudy today, and I was looking at the weather earlier. It's about 21 degrees maximum temperature, 21 degrees Celsius. It looks like this herd is now moving off. Looks like the matriarch has now told them it's time to move on. What's quite incredible is that the matriarch is able to remember some of the best areas for feeding and some of the best water holes, and they can remember it for 10 years. 10 years can go by where they haven't visited a water hole, and they'll still remember exactly which route to take to get there. And I just find that quite incredible. I mean, sometimes I can't even remember where I put my car keys, let alone remember a water hole I visited 10 years ago.
My name is Amy, and today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently.
What does it take to handle the wild? Balance. Determination. Focus.
Yaku!
And gear that can take a beating so you don't have to.
My full name is Mpho Tikani. I grew up in Soweto. My first animal that I filmed is a dog. Okay, no, wait. My first animal that I filmed, I think it was an impala. Best sighting ever, I would say it was actually this year, 2024. But it was this Cedric when we had Mulwati and TP on a warthog kill. I think we have to cut it.
Oh, she's gonna catch it!
Come on, Tommy!
Watch this, we're about to see a kill.
You can see how close he is from where I am. Out here, every moment counts. As a Wild Earth explorer, you won't miss a thing. Watch the Wild Earth channel ad-free 24/7 and rewind if you want to catch something again. Enjoy behind the scenes videos, fireside chats and early access to travel offers. It's the best way to stay connected and be part of the Wild Earth family.
The right. Also just making the most of the mud. Having a nice little mud bath. And so what's also quite interesting is that elephants have a feeding behavior called geophagia, which essentially means eating earth. So basically they supplement their diets with some minerals which they get from eating soil or sand. So the minerals which they don't get in their diets. And you would typically see this sort of behavior in areas where the vegetation is very nutrient poor, so not a lot of nutrients and good stuff in the vegetation because the soil is not necessarily very rich with the right stuff, the right minerals. Looks like this elephant is doing a bit of a yoga pose for us there, a bit of a downward dog. Oh, they're just such a delight to watch. Okay, it looks like this elephant has had enough now. So please do remember to keep those questions or comments or stories coming. I don't know if you could see there, this elephant in the middle. It's got a bit of, almost looks like tears coming off the side of its face. And so that's actually see there's hormones that are coming there. So when they're stressed out, they secrete cortisol, the stress hormone, out of those glands on the side of their faces. And also when an elephant bull is in must, they also tend to secrete a lot of testosterone out of those glands. So it's almost as if the gland gets rid of all the excess hormones which the elephant doesn't utilize. So it's quite a nice indicator. So you can see when an elephant is stressed. So it's quite useful in elephant management, if you're working in reserve management and that, or even if you're observing elephants, you be sure to check the side of their face and see if there's some of that fluid dripping off the side of their face, and that will give you an indication of whether the elephant is stressed or not. So it would be a good idea to not get too close to an elephant that's been stressed out. And there can be a number of stresses, perhaps an encounter with poachers or an encounter with a predator, or even sometimes bees. Elephants hate bees, and perhaps they were chased by a swarm earlier in the day, so one never knows. So it's always just important to be careful and to be on the lookout for things like that. It looks like it's raining a little bit over there. It's quite lovely to see. So Melanistic Marble says, Tembe has been fabulous recently. So I haven't been following too much recently, but I believe that Tembe always produces the goods when it comes to sightings. So thanks for sharing that, Melanistic Marble. And Danny French also says that Tembe is crowded with elephants. I wouldn't say crowded, but definitely lots of elephants, especially crowding around the waterhole perhaps, but definitely not crowded in the sense of overpopulated in Tembe. So I think, yeah, crowding in the right context over here would be that it's quite crowded at the waterhole. So Ernest says, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Guy. What a great day. And good afternoon to you too, Ernest. It's a great day to be alive and to be viewing the spectacular wildlife that Africa has to offer. And of course, we get to see some of the most pristine locations and some of the most wonderful places in Africa, in the African bush. So let's go to Lentore. Seeing as it's raining, it looks like it's raining quite nicely over there. Let's see what's happening in Kenya. So we're here at Lentore Lodge in the Great Rift Valley in Kenya, and we've got a baboon in picture. Looks like he's up to no good. Of course, here in Africa, they can be quite the pest to many people, because they sometimes get into people's houses and they steal some food. They get into your pantry and get to the sugar, and they've also been known to open fridges and help themselves to some of the beverages and things in the fridge. So they can be quite annoying, but I do hold baboons in high regard, because I think they're incredibly intelligent creatures, and I think they're so fascinating to watch. And they're also very good at communicating through their facial expressions. So what they don't say with their words, with their vocalizations, they tend to say with their faces. So much like us humans are able to read each other's body language, they say, over 60 or 80% of what you say is conveyed in your body language. So the same goes for baboons and the way they express and communicate with their faces and their body language.
My name is Amy, and today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently.
The Wild Earth Impact Foundation is a non-profit that uses the power of wildlife storytelling as a force for good. We create sustainable development projects that showcase conservation stories, empower people, and inspire environmental action. As a registered South African PBO, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Wild Earth Impact Foundation. To find out more, visit our website. Join our expert guides at dawn for a live, immersive safari as the bush comes to life.
found ourselves a chameleon, and look how he's changed color.
Every sunrise brings new discoveries.
Pound for pound, a leopard is one of the strongest cats around.
Ask questions, share your thoughts, and connect with nature, live and in real time.
Great excitement, great happiness.
Start your day with adventure.
That is most certainly the case. And a lot of other animals tend to hang out around baboons because they're normally in trees, so they also have that high vantage point. And as I mentioned earlier, they've got incredible vision. So they're able to see danger and alert other animals to danger before it becomes imminent. So Canine Girl says, I saw a video of a large male baboon take on a large pack of at least 15 wild dogs. That was amazing. That does sound incredible, and it just goes to show how confident these baboons are in their own strength. I know a lot of people underestimate just how strong and powerful baboons can be. And they also have those really long and sharp canine teeth, which are like kitchen knives that can easily cause serious damage, lesions to one's skin. And I definitely wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of a male baboon. They can also be incredibly intimidating with their loud calls. I don't know if any of you have ever heard a baboon up close when it's calling or alarm calling, and it can be incredibly loud and quite intimidating. So let's see what's happening at Safari Hook. Let's see if those lions are moving about. Maybe there's some more elephants. Looks like we have the mighty springboks in picture over here. I'm very much looking forward to watching them take on the Argentinians later. So for those of you who don't know, the South African national rugby team, the Springboks, are taking on the Argentinians later. And so this game in particular will decide whether the Springboks win the competition or not. So we're very much looking forward to that. I think those Springbok better be careful. Almost looks like a crocodile is like lurking there at the bottom of our screens. So that would be that would be an incredible sighting if we saw crocodile take down a springbok. But I'm not quite sure what that is exactly, but it's definitely getting closer and closer to that springbok. Okay, the springbok seem to have been alarmed by something. I just find crocodiles fascinating. I think they're adapted so well. They're adapted so well to their environment, and so they can stay underwater for up to an hour. And they do this by slowing their heart rate down. And they slow their heart rate to sometimes 2 to 3 beats per minute, which I just find incredibly fascinating. And they also have special valves in their veins, which, okay, I can see, is that a crocodile? It looks like it. Is someone able to tell me what that is in picture? I can't make out what that is. Okay, so it's been made clear to me that there aren't any crocodiles. Lady Macbeth says Etosha has no crocodiles. So thank you for sharing that, Lady Macbeth. So I wonder what that is. Do you perhaps know, Lady Macbeth, what that is in picture? Because I am quite intrigued as to what that could be. So Monique Cherry says crocolog. So yes, I think that's probably just a crocolog floating in the water over there, easily mistaken for a crocodile. So while we try to figure out what that is in the water, very strange, let's link to Old Donyo. Let's see what's happening in Kenya. Plenty of zebras in the picture. A dazzle of zebra. Almost looks like a moving barcode. can be quite... You just stare at the zebras and their stripes for quite long. It almost looks like an optical illusion. And so you can imagine how that can benefit them when they're in groups like this and they're trying to cause a distraction for their predators. It becomes very difficult to hone in on one particular zebra when all you see is just a flash of a barcode just moving around like that, causing a sort of optical illusion. What's quite interesting about zebra is that much of their day is spent eating or drinking. And so in order to get enough nutrients and to get enough of the essential things that their body needs, then they need to eat quite regularly. And so zebra are grazers, and so they eat a lot of grass, and they're not very particular about what grasses they eat. And so they tend to be followed by wildebeest or gnus and impala and that, because they cut the grass nice and short for impalas or wildebeest to then get to the shorter grasses which they are after, which they prefer. So Kim Faustino says Oldonyo is a place where most ungulates unite. And that seems to certainly be the case. I haven't seen any predators in the time that I've been covering the show at Oldonyo, but definitely lots of ungulates. So ungulates being hoofed animals that don't have feet like us humans. They have these modified feet, or what we refer to as hooves. So you think of cows and goats, they're also ungulates because they are hooved, and then horses as well. So it's just a fancy term which we use to refer to hooved animals. So a big party going on here at the waterhole at Oldonyo. They're all getting very excited for the rugby game later. And they're of course all cheering for the Springboks. So Cardiff Stitcher Danielle says, now that's a big herd of zebra. How many are there roughly? So I'm not too sure exactly how many there are, but I'd imagine there's probably somewhere close to 40, I'd say, just taking a guess. But I'd imagine these would be a few different harems. So the zebras, they have a social structure called a harem, where you have male, dominant male, which will then lead a group of females and the young. And so sometimes zebras the harems will move around together, especially during migrations and that. So they will move in numbers. So they have that sort of strength in numbers, more eyes looking out for danger, and it also is a more dazzling display, of course. So it becomes more difficult for a lion to pick out a particular zebra. So Wildlife Lady says, definitely zebra drinking time. Wonderful to see so many. Yeah, it's one of my mom's favorite animals. She loves the zebra. So if you're watching this now, Mom, there's a lovely display of zebras for you. So who else here loves zebras, or whose favorite animal is a zebra? So Kim Faustino says, I would say these zebras might consist of Birchall's or African plain zebra. So Birchall's and plain zebra are the same species. It's just different common names for the same species. And interestingly enough, the quagga, which is now extinct it's an extinct subspecies of the zebra. So the plain zebra. And so the plain zebra's scientific name is Equus quagga, which obviously refers to the subspecies that is now extinct. So they used to occur in the Northern Cape and the Western Cape of South Africa. And so they went extinct, I believe, in the early 1900s. And so there was obviously not a very large population of this subspecies, but they were obviously driven to extinction by hunting activities. Maybe they were well sought after for their hide or as meat. But unfortunately, that is a species that no longer, or subspecies that no longer exists. So Cardiff Stitcher Danielle says, I love zebras. So thank you for sharing that with us, Cardiff Stitcher Danielle. Yeah, I think there's such stunning animals, so beautiful to see.
Oh, wow.
My full name is Emojis Tusitikani. Best part of my job is coming to see nature. Worst part of my job is logging. That's the worst thing ever, because you have to log amount of footage. You sit in front of that computer and yeah, you think of deleting the footage, but no, they need the footage. If I want a camel, probably a soccer player. I know some people don't believe me, but I'm very good, and I'm very fast.
Ah, the bush, full of beauty, wonder, and absolute chaos. And now, all that madness has its own show. It's called a Wild Bush Week. The countdown of the most outrageous, heart-stopping, and sometimes downright ridiculous wildlife moments of the week. Lions throwing their weight around. Hyenas gate-crashing the buffet. Leopards doing, well, leopardy things. Each week, it's a fresh reel of safari gold. A mix of drama,
She's just got an impala, everybody.
danger, and a healthy dose of laughter. So, if you fancy a highlight show with bite, and I don't mean just the animals, tune in to a Wild Bush Week. You bring the tea, and we'll bring the tusks, tails, and teeth.
Arm system on its back and gets cleaned and protected by parasites from the oxpecker, while the rhino offers protection to the bird as well, and also provides the bird with a nice meal. So Lucy Goody is asking, where is Mantis Founders Lodge situated? And so it's about an hour's drive from Gqeberha, formerly known as Port Elizabeth. And so it's also right next to Shamwari Game Reserve. So if you're looking to visit, it's a very beautiful landscape, and there's wonderful animal sightings over there in that area, and the vegetation is quite different to what we typically see in the Lowveld region, or like the other savanna regions which we tend to see in our other locations. There's it's more what we call Albany thicket. It's a different biome, but also suitable for the big five to thrive there. Of course, we have a warthog to the right of our screen. Also just enjoying a nice drink at the, seems like quite a surprisingly windless day at Mantis Founders Lodge. So Deb D says they appear to be wearing a suit of armor, and it would definitely seem so. And as I mentioned earlier, the skin can be very thick in some places, up to 4 centimeters thick in some places. So it definitely does act like an armor. So they're very well protected against the thorns from the acacias in the bush, and from anything any predator piercing their skin. The wildlife lady says, gorgeous to see the white rhinos here on a regular basis. No, it is definitely such a privilege to be able to see them, and also very nice of this rhino, this little calf, to show us exactly how it urinates and defecates. And almost looks like it could levitate with all that compression. So Wildlife Lady says, enjoyed today's live at the Waterhole. A big thanks to Johan, FC and all the Zoomies. Thank you very much, Wildlife Lady, for tuning in. I really appreciate you tuning in, and it was really a wonderful show, and I thoroughly enjoyed being with you and answering your questions. And yeah, just such a wonderful day. So Kim Faustino says a recent update about white rhino is we have 2 northern white rhino. Is that right? I hope the population has already increased. So that is right. There are only 2 individuals of the northern white rhino, which is a subspecies of the white rhino. And so the ones that we see in picture are the southern species or subspecies of white rhino. And so the northern white rhino was declared extinct some years ago. I think it was maybe, I believe probably about 10 years ago now, if I'm not mistaken. But the reason they declared them extinct, even though there are still a couple of surviving members, is that they no longer are a viable population. So if, I'm not entirely sure, but I'd imagine it's probably either 2 males or maybe a male and a female that are closely related. So I don't believe they've obviously done the research and they've established that the population can't grow or re-establish itself from those 2 individuals. Maybe if they were to breed together, there'd be a lot of inbreeding, and perhaps that they won't be successful in the wild. But I'm sure there's a good reason for them being declared extinct. So Lady Macbeth says South Africa has one of the world's largest, or has the world's largest population of southern white rhino. And that is indeed correct. And yeah, we're very, very lucky. And it's also thanks to phenomenal conservation efforts by many stakeholders in South Africa. A lot is being done in the anti-poaching circles, and I just think, yeah, it's just fantastic that the numbers have been able to bounce back the way they have from what they were about 40, 50 years ago. So Canine Girl says, been some lovely sightings today. Thank you, Johan Wild Earth FC. Thank you for joining us, Canine Girl. It was lovely answering your questions and having you comment. So thank you very much for that. Melanistic Marble says, it looks glorious weather there today. And definitely a magnificent day there in Mantis Founders Lodge. So if you're close by, be sure to pop into Shamwari, or if you're able to get a booking or something. I think it would be a fantastic day to view some rhinos and some warthog and an Egyptian goose. Penelope Kenyon says, thank you everyone, another great time at Live at the Waterhole. Thank you, Penelope. Always enjoy answering your questions and hearing your comments. So Taxi Lady Outer Hebrides, I don't know if I'm saying Hebrides, maybe? I don't know if I'm saying your name correctly, but you pointed out to us that there's only 2 females left of the northern white rhino. The sperm of the male has been stored and IVF proposed. So obviously they've now stored the semen of the northern white rhino, so that perhaps if they're able to clone a male individual, or if they're maybe able to fertilize the female through IV, then they can perhaps start another viable population. But thank you for sharing that, Taxi Lady. That's interesting to know. Thank you. It's so cute, these little Egyptian geese, goslings that are floating about over there. So Lenny says, I hope you get a chance to watch the Rosy Pan video. So thank you, Lenny. I did see there is a link to that video, so I appreciate that. I'll definitely check that out. Yeah, must be quite sad to see the was it an impala, pregnant impala that was taken down? But it is unfortunately the realities of nature. And Kim Faustino says, it's always been a pleasure. Thank you for the update. So thank you, Kim. So had some interesting questions there and some comments, so thank you for sharing. So Mnisidisi Glovu says, nice view, thanks for bringing nature to our homes. It's quite a nice view of the white rhino is urinating for us, but definitely on a more serious note, I think we're incredibly privileged to have this program broadcast to us, and I think it's such an amazing opportunity for people who can't regularly visit these nature reserves, that they're able to still enjoy their natural heritage and to enjoy our natural heritage that is we're so blessed to have in Southern Africa and in Africa. So Mr. Elemental says, time to top up the waterhole. So I'm not too sure whether this waterhole is pumped, but if the water is pumped to this waterhole, but yeah, I believe it could probably do with some filling. So I'd just like to thank you all for joining me and on the show today and joining the Wild Earth crew. It's been such a great show, and it's been a privilege to broadcast to you today. And I think it's quite appropriate that we have the iconic white rhino on the screens over here, and it's ending off with a beautiful scene in the background. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.